Hi there. So glad to get to be with you again during this time, and hope that by the time we're finished today, you're going to be further along in the grieving process as we're doing this series on grief. And today we talk about the second step in the grieving process. In the first step, we talked about how all of us during this time have had loss. Life is loss, and loss of expectations, of dreams, whatever. A lot of loss. As I'm doing this, we're in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. So in the first step, we say, I have a limitation and I can't overcome it. It's there, can't fix it. I am powerless, not helpless, not hopeless. But in and of myself, I don't have what it takes to fix my life. The second step is that I accept the fact that God exists and has the power to restore me, to bring back the sanity that kind of I've lost or evaded. And so in this second step, it says this: I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me. Or as it says, a power greater than ourselves could restore us. And of course, the 12 steps are written in past tense because it's the Bill W. and Dr. Bob. It's them talking about here's what worked for us. And if it didn't work, it wouldn't be in here. So we read the second step. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And the scripture, Philippians 2:13, reads like this: God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. So God is working in us, and He does want to restore sanity, wants to restore spirituality. A lot of times we've lost that in our sorrow and our pain and dragging ungrieved loss around with us. And He wants to restore our relationships also. And I got to tell you, it's not difficult to, or unusual to forget that there is this God, that He exists, that He's there for us. And it says in the Bible, and I've found this to be true, if you seek me, I will be found by you. So we go from, trying to have all these defective ways of dealing with stuff to finally saying, none of my defective ways are working. And so I'm going to give them up. And then I'm going to look for what does work. And when I do, I will be open to something more powerful than me, because that's what I need. And if you'll ask God to show up, I believe God will. I've heard it over and over again, and I've certainly experienced it in my own life. Now think about this. A lot of people say, well, I'm an atheist. I don't want to be religious, and I don't believe in God. Well, you have to have a lot of faith to not believe in God. Think about this. We know there are billions of stars and planets. You could say billions of galaxies in this universe. And you look at all of them, and some are more attractive than others. But here's this little marble called Earth. Blue, green, all these beautiful colors. From a distance, it's a beautiful planet. And isn't it amazing? All these places, and here is this planet. It's just at the right tilt that maintains stability. It's just the right amount of gravity, where if there was too much gravity, we'd be slithering like snakes because we couldn't walk upright. If there was too little, we'd be bouncing all over the place. We couldn't function. Just the right amount of gravity to walk, run. It's amazing. Just the perfect ingredients in the air for us to breathe, to have life. And just the perfect amount of ingredients to create our bodies, life. I was talking with one of the most world-renowned atheists, Richard Dawkins. we had a great conversation, and I just said to him, Richard, I said, it's so interesting when people talk about evolution, and you've had this thrown at you many times, the eyeball. To believe that this intricate, amazing thing just popped out of nowhere, because there is no evolution of an eyeball. He said, well, there was an animal that had eye buds. I go, oh, really? I got to tell you, show me in evolution. Here's where the species developed, and they had these things. They couldn't see very well. And then they were blurry, and they bumped into all this stuff. And then the eyeball evolved into this perfect mechanism. Let me tell you something. The eyeball it ought to be proof enough that there is a God who made us. You would never look at a watch and think, yeah, boy, isn't that something? That's incredible. That the eyeball is more miraculous in all of its dimensions and what it can do than a watch. And if you don't think a watch could make itself and develop randomly on its own, how in the world could you believe an eyeball could? So part of this is just looking all around us. One of the smartest people that ever existed, Albert Einstein, he wrote 1,400 letters, personal letters on his stationery. His stationery is quite impressive. It said Albert Einstein on it. And his daughter released these letters after he died. And one of the most powerful letters, he said, one of the greatest forces of the universe, never been fully tapped. It is the force of love. And he says, love is God, and God is love. I think he saw that evidence all around him. And there's so much evidence that God exists. He's helped me. He's helped others. He's transformed others. And there's just an awful lot of things we can turn to say, even though I am powerless to fix myself, there is a God that I can turn to. Step one, I can't do this. Step two, God can, because God exists, and he's done it to other people. He's done it before, and he'll do it again. Romans 5:3, Paul said this, we can rejoice when we run into problems and trials. Isn't that something? The reason we can rejoice is that when we come onto problems and trials, God is going to show up. James said it this way, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. That just makes no sense unless you understand that God is going to show up and is going to do something miraculous with us. And it's going to be enduring in value. For instance, Romans 5:4-5. Our faith gets tested. And then when it's tested, we have a chance to grow our ability to endure. And endurance is the thing that builds godly character. What's going to go to heaven? Your soul. What's in your soul? Your character. And character leads us to hope for salvation. It's hope that simply will not disappoint. Now, let me give you a really just a simple example of powerlessness and turning to God. The disciples were in a boat. Jesus was in the boat with them. Big storm came up. And they realized they were powerless to stop the storm. And they didn't think they had the power in and of themselves to survive the storm. So what did they do? They went to Jesus. Lord, help us, is what they said. There it is. We are powerless in the storm. We have Jesus on board. And they went and said, Lord, save us. They were scared to death. And so in their fear, they said, Lord, save us. Versus, oh, the Lord will save us. He's on board, having confidence. But at least they knew where to go for help. And they knew he had the power to do it. And then they were shocked when he did. And that's going to be something that's going to happen in any of our lives, that we can turn to God and He'll help us do what we think is impossible. You know, if we have struggled with bitterness and resentment, we turn to God and He helps us grieve the loss, grieve what was taken by that person, grieve all of that, and then we can experience freedom under His power. How much faith do you need? Not a lot. The Bible tells us all we need is a little mustard seed worth of faith. That's it. Well, that's not much. And I think that's pretty exciting, that all you need, little bit of faith. And you just know that even though I can't do this on my own, God will help me. He'll help me survive the bitterness and the anger I need to feel and express. He'll help me survive the sadness and the depression I need to feel from this loss and express. Emotions need to be felt and expressed. And then when we do that, then we can be free from them. I want to read you something. Look at this evidence of what God has done. It's Hebrews 11. Now, faith is the reality that what is hoped for, and it's proof of what is not seen. For by it our ancestors won God's approval. And so we go through the list. By faith we understand that the universe was created by the Word of God, so that what is seen was made from things that are not visible. By faith Abel offered to God better sacrifices than Cain did. By faith he was approved as a righteous man, because God approved his gifts. And even though he is dead, he still speaks through his faith. He was faithful. By faith Enoch was taken away, and so he did not experience death. He was not to be found because God took him away, is what they said. There was no grave. For before he was taken away, he was approved as one who pleased God. Now, without faith, it's impossible to please God, since the one who draws near to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. By faith, Noah, after he was warned about what was not yet seen, was motivated by godly fear to build the ark to deliver his family. And by faith he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. By faith Abraham, when he was called, obeyed and set out for a place where he was going to receive as an inheritance. He went out even though he did not know where he was going. By faith he stayed as a foreigner in the land, and he was living in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, co-heirs of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And it just goes on. Faith of the people. And God is faithful. So, no, you can't fix this. Yep, God can. That's just one of the most wonderful things to accept. I can't, God can. It's that simple. Step 1 and step 2. I can't deal with this grief on my own. But if I surrender to God, I have to believe that God is there before, as in step 3, I can surrender to him. So, I can't, God can. And when we turn to God through Christ, he did experience grief and sorrow. And he'll experience with us and get us through it and get us over it and get us beyond it. That's the promise. Now, tomorrow, big, huge step. The step of surrender. I can't, God can't, and then I'll let God do what I believe he can do. That's what we'll deal with next time. Thank you for joining me, and I hope and I pray that the work that we're doing through this grief workbook with Life Recovery is going to be helpful to you. And we'll see you next time.